Well, hello again. You have reached the Successful Home Inspection Podcast. I am Preston Sandlin, and I'm here to help you with your home inspection business. And we're also here to help improve the home inspection industry at large. We've got a couple of things special planned for you today, so sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready. Thanks. Hey, home inspectors out there, I'm here to bring you a strategy that will increase your business, and it's easy. Go to homeinspectionflyers.com, get you 5 flyers, put your logo, your information, your testimonials in there, send them off to the printing company. Within a week, you get a box full of flyers at your door, ready to go. You've got all your marketing materials for the month. Take out flyer number 1, that whole how many offices you serve. Hit those offices with those flyers and candy, and hope you have candy bowls in those offices. I'm telling you, you will increase your business. Pick out some flyers you can get into. Again, homeinspectionflyers.com. Here's the formula. homeinspectionflyers.com. Get the flyers, fix them up, send them off to get printed. They come to your door. You take them. You get candy. You go to the offices, and you will increase your business. Thanks for listening. I'm here with Dan Huber, owner of Inspection Support Network, and I'll let him introduce himself, but there are a couple of things I want to say first, though. When I originally started this podcast, I wanted to interview 3 people, and I made 3 different sets of questions. I wanted to interview home inspectors, realtors, and vendors to the home inspection industry. Well, guess what? You guys got the triple threat today because Dan has been all 3. But I think his current position is a vendor of Inspection Support Network, which is an awesome product. We use it at Home Inspection Carolina. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about you personally, because we'd like to get to know you personally.
Well, hey, Preston, thanks for having me, and hello, everybody. Well, I have been living in Las Vegas here since 1978, which basically just means I'm old. So we've seen lots of changes here in the Vegas market, from 350,000 people to a little over 2 million. Wow. I was a realtor a full-time realtor for 27 years. Proud to say I'm in the who's who for and the Hall of Fame for RE/MAX back in the day.
Nice.
And so that was great. I had the opportunity to actually sell Mr. Warren Buffett a piece of land here for his furniture company called R.C. Willey. So that was one of my highlights. Was went to pick him up in the car and went up in the helicopter to look over at the land with Mr. Buffett in there. So that was a cool thing. Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
And I was a co-founder of Home Pride Inspections. That was the largest home inspection company in Nevada at one time. We had 10 inspectors for many years. Had that for 15 years, and then we started Inspection Support Network, or ISN, a little over 10 years ago. And I've been married 35 years to my wonderful bride. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Her dad is starting to think it might work out, so that's good. I think
that boy's gonna work out. He's gonna be all right.
Yeah, maybe. It's been over 30 years now. He's got a chance. And I'm a sax player, so I have a band, and we play in Texas a lot and in Las Vegas a lot, and got 3 albums out with our band, Duly Noted. So I try to stay, well-rounded, and but probably my favorite thing is just really watching the inspection industry grow and watching how it's maturing, and we're seeing more and more people that start off as great home inspectors maturing into good, solid business people. And I hope that that's one of the things Inspection Support Network helped them with, and and I'm proud to be part of our growing but new industry.
Yeah, that is awesome, Dan. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think most of us, including myself, when we got into inspection business, we were all technicians and good technicians. But you've got to learn how to become a business person in addition to becoming, being a technician. Being a technician's not enough. It's just not enough. Well, Dan, many of us, didn't grow up wanting to be a home inspector or a realtor. But I know I wanted to be a pilot and an artist. I don't even think home inspection as a profession existed when I was a kid. So, what did you want to be when you were a kid, and how did you get into real estate? And I guess that led you into home inspection. But what did you want to be when you grew up? How did you get into real estate?
Well, I moved to Las Vegas I went to Arizona State University as a music major, and I came up to Vegas to play music, and ended up being a 21 dealer, and playing a little music on the side, and the music business is tough, but I didn't play for about 10 years, and then started playing again, and so now I'm playing very serious out with some great musicians in a couple of different states. So I'm still doing what my childhood dream was a little bit, but I'm just not willing to starve for my profession or to live out of a bus. So I'm trying to manage music instead of music managing me. And I had the opportunity to take a test from Princeton once that was supposed to basically help you learn what you ought to do as an adult for your profession.
Oh, boy.
And
what did it say?
It basically said I was in trouble. No,
I have to tell you what mine said, but go ahead.
Yeah, what was really good is it really did say that there was a lot of things I was very bad at, but that where I did excel was building relationships, which equates to sales and putting businesses together. And so I've been lucky to be able to follow that path a little bit as I've gone through my adult life.
Oh, wow. Hey, Dan, I took that same test, and I scored real high on art stuff. I'm like you. Instead of music, I'm into art, and I have a little art stuff on the side, but it's not my career. But you know what the number one thing it said I would be best at? It was off the charts. You want to hear what that is?
What was it?
Nursing home administrator. I still remember it to this day. Nursing home. I'm not even sure what a nursing home administrator does, but apparently I'd be super good at it.
Well, with all us baby boomers getting older, you might have another profession waiting to happen.
There you go. Hey, well, Dan, before we move on, while we're at this, though, for the listeners out there, is there any way they could find out more about your music or your band, or is there a website, or is there a way they could find out more?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. If they want to go to Duly Noted, that's DULYNOTED.net, dulynoted.net, and you'll see everything about our band. You'll also see our 3 downloads for our different albums, and then we do have the 3 albums on iTunes if they want to download something. So they can take a look and see if it interests them. We do a lot of rhythm and blues, great girl singer, great trumpet, great piano, great great arrangements.
Sweet. I have heard Dan play the sax, and the guy's got skills. That's all I can say.
Thanks.
Well, Dan, how long have you been associated with the home inspection profession? And you kind of answered that, but tell me, what changes have you seen?
Well, we've seen an amazing amount of changes. So back in the day when I was still selling real estate full-time, my wife had a multi-appraisal firm. So she's still an appraiser today. Matter of fact, she's in her 3rd term as a Nevada appraisal commissioner, so very proud of her.
Wow.
And I was, I did a lot of teaching back when I was in selling real estate full-time. I was an education chairman for Nevada, dean of faculty, blah, 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 all the stuff my mom wrote about me there. But being really involved when the inspections first started happening, there was concern on the realtor side. There was no licensing in Nevada. We looked around and thought that this was definitely a profession that we were interested in, that we thought was going to be around, and we envisioned way back probably 17, 18 years ago that there would be an inspection with probably every sale or purchase, and that's what's happened. So we had the privilege of being asked by the Real Estate Division in Nevada to sit down on a task force to help come up with the laws for licensing for Nevada. And as a result, we ended up opening up our inspection company here in Las Vegas, and we learned right away that we were so blessed because we knew pretty much every realtor in town. And as a result, we were able to get in and market directly to the agents basically before there was much competition. And we looked around and looked for a business application to help us run the inspection company, and we looked around for report writers. And back then, all the report writers were written, and so we created our first written report. And I remember the first time that we wrote a check for $10,000 for the 4-part paper report down at the printer. I said, let's see if we can find a software guy. And so
were they carbon? Like carbon copy type deal?
Yeah, the kind you couldn't, the inspectors wouldn't push hard enough, and then you would fax the reports. And
you had to find something hard to write. You'd be writing on the hood of your truck or something.
Well, and to your point earlier, Preston, I think it's important for our listeners to not just gloss over that being a good technician or a good inspector isn't enough anymore. It used to be enough. There was a time when if you showed up on time and you had even a mediocre report style with no photos, maybe you weren't the best of communicators, but you were a good guy and a good inspector, that you could grow your business. And that day is gone because the expectations from the realtors and the agents have changed. So they certainly expect a licensed, if there's licensing in your state, a licensed professional, thorough home inspector. And I would say that across the board, and I'd hope you agree, Preston, we see that is not the least of the concerns across the nation, because the guys I get to meet are fabulous inspectors. They have so much more knowledge than the average agent or consumer realizes that they have. But how do you package that knowledge, and how do you make it easier and more comfortable for the agent and for the client? So truly today, if you're doing a great inspection out there, that's just the beginning instead of the be-all, end-all.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you probably do meet, because Dan, and he's been gracious to grant me this interview, but he's in between shows, and he goes to all the convention, all the organizations and the marketing groups that are out there. So the people he's meeting are inspectors that are trying to increase their knowledge, trying to sharpen their skills, and hope. But we're all going to have to do that, or else, we're going to be like Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, that's just the nature. It's evolving, I think.
Well, we have seen that evolution with Inspection Support Network. So if we go back maybe over 10 years ago, before the big drop in the economy, we had this business management system called ISN Inspection Support Network, and nobody had really heard of it. And even though it was very effective with our own inspection company, a lot of old school, great guys, but old school inspectors that where just a good inspection was enough, they laughed at us, but a lot of those guys retired when the economy went down, and the people that came out of the ashes of the fallen economy are more the business-minded people that are doing the email confirmation reminders, the text reminders, the online scheduling, a lot of things that ISN does now that has become more a staple in the industry rather than a leading edge, like extra cool thing. Now if you talk to most agents expect online scheduling. They expect a confirmation email. They expect digital agreements. They expect you to have your phone app. They expect you to be plugged in to the technology world, and why would they expect anything different when They are looking at you to go in and be the expert on these very complex HVAC units, all the different things that we look at as home inspectors today. I think staying up with the rest of technology goes hand in hand with what we need to know about a house.
Right. Well, that leads right into my next question. I'm going to ask you to tell me about your product and service. And I'm sure the listeners out there probably are going to vary. There's probably going to be a lot of people who already use your service, but there's some people who are probably hearing about you for the first time. Dan owns ISN, which is Inspection Support Network. I use it at my company, and I love it. He didn't pay me to say that. It is a scheduling system. We have multi-inspectors. We schedule the inspections on there. It has a series of emails that go out and let everybody know and remind everybody. And I'm not even telling you all the features. These are just the ones I can think off the top of my head. And it goes to all my inspectors, have it on their phones or tablets. They can get signatures right at the thing. They get reminders. It's just awesome. It comes with an app. Now you can give an app to whenever I speak, make sure everybody in that room has that app before I leave, where they can schedule straight from their phone. It's just awesome. I was on another system. I was a holdout for a while. I'm very loyal. And that system was good for a long time, but I didn't even know about Dan. But and once I switched over to Dan, they gave great training. It took me just a little bit to get the hang of it, but I'm sure glad I did, and all our guys love it. And I hope I didn't steal your thunder there, Dan. But tell us about your product service now that I've told it.
Well, no, I think your explanation is great, and again, for our listeners, if we go back, most home inspectors got into the inspection business because they're entrepreneurial thinkers. They like being out and get some fresh air. They like knowing about technology in the houses, but they may not be all that crazy about the computer and all of that. And so there was a disconnect in our industry where once you got to a second or a third inspector, then the business owners, they ended up having to be like spreadsheet experts and had to like be all this sort of geeked up stuff that isn't us normal home inspectors. We're smart guys. The average home inspector, we're smart guys, but we may not have that sort of technical geek side to us or interest. And one of the things that you had to do to grow your business in the past was basically take a bunch of different kinds of solutions and sort of glue your small business together. And in a sense, that's what ISN has done. Is if you think about it, everybody has to take a order on ISN or an order to do their inspection. So even if it's on a yellow pad or if it's directly into your report writer, you have to get the client information, the realtor information, the address, square footage, some of those basics. Back in the day, that same information had to be retyped to maybe put into agreement if you had one, and you probably didn't retype it to put into an email. If you didn't put it into your report writer, you had to retype it there. Oh, gosh, now they want an invoice. Oh, my gosh, it's Friday, and I have to figure out my books and how many inspections did I do and retype it into QuickBooks or whatever. And so ISN is a business in a box. It is built by home inspectors for home inspectors, and it has evolved through the years so that if you can put in the address and the client information into your inspection support network instead of on a yellow pad or your report writer, that information, Preston, then goes to your agreement and goes to your automated emails and goes to your invoice and goes to your database and goes into your report writer. And if you use like Inspector Services Group, Recall Check, or Homeowners Network, or whatever it is that you might use, it's going to push into there. So as an inspector, as a business owner, not only do you have your whole business streamlined and all automated for you, it is all in one place. So just think about it, that address and the client information, it used to be you might have to type that same information 4 or 5 times. With ISN, you put it into the order, and everything becomes automated, from there.
Yeah. And, Dan, I always tell people, like when I'm hiring inspectors or recruiting inspectors, I always tell them, there's three parts, and I figured out there's basically three parts to this business. There's the technical, actually doing the inspections. There's the marketing, because you've got to do that to keep the business coming. And there's the administrative part. And
right.
like we alluded to earlier, most inspectors are fantastic at that technical part. But it's hard to be fantastic at that and be fantastic at administrative and marketing. And, you know, my wife, and we have a girl working for us, and, you know, we have a call center and all that. My wife said, you know, that's the administrative. I think ISN, my wife said this quote, I remember her saying, having ISN is like having an extra person. Because it does the work and automates the work that basically it would take a whole nother live person, you know, W-2, FICA and all that, but I don't have to pay ISN FICA. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is if our listeners are out there deciding what's growth in their life and their business look like. So here's the deal. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go and make sure that email goes out to the client agent. I might do it if I'm slow or if I'm just starting my business, but then we get busy. So if I can automate that, that's worth something to me, because not only then do I become more consistent as a business owner, but I have everything tracked and it's automated. And if we take a look at the average inspector that makes, let's just call it around the country, an average of $125 to $150 an hour, the
right.
more you can automate, then the more money that you save. So it's an interesting thing. I've heard people say, oh, like Inspection Support Network is expensive, but I never hear that from anybody that uses the service, because they quickly see how much they save in time and possible adding another employee and having consistency. There is no way you could do, as an example, if you're a single guy. There's no way that you can compete in the marketplace today if you're trying to do 2 inspections a day and do all the administrative by yourself. If you're out there and you're listening to this, then I will tell you that if you're working less than 12 hours a day, I'll buy you a beer.
I know the days you're talking about, man, doing 2-3 inspections a day, staying up till late at night writing reports and just burning that oil on both ends. And I'm sure there's some guys out there that are listening to this that we're preaching their story. And this will save you time. It'll save you time. It's like having another person. And it's like you said, it's a system. You know, it's kind of like that Michael Gerber E-Myth. You know, the more systems, the more things you can automate, the more you can focus on the things that, you know, that you don't divide your talents. You get to focus your talents on what is really important.
Well, and some people, Preston, don't realize that when we say an automated email today or an automated text, that
right.
text looks just like you typed it with your 2 thumbs and has the address and everything in there really nice and the time of the inspection, or the email can say exactly what you want and has the client's name information in the email, the address, maybe the inspector who they can expect, maybe even the inspector's photo in the email. So when we say automated, I want to hopefully communicate to our listeners out there that it doesn't mean that it's canned and sort of
right.
lame. It looks like you typed it up yourself.
Absolutely. And I've shown up at inspections or met realtors out and say, I just got your email. They and start telling me, and I'm it's one of those automated, but they thought I typed it. And, you know,
sure.
I got to remember, absolutely, yeah, you know, yeah. In my mind, I'm going, oh, what email are they even talking about? But no, that's
there you
good.
go.
It's doing the work for you. Well, tell me, Dan, what sets your product service apart? I really don't even know if you have competition, but what sets you apart?
What sets us apart is a couple of things. I will tell you that the information you take on the order form in ISN, again, the client information, realtor information, those kinds of things, pushes into pretty much every national report writer out there. And so one of the things that I would like to make sure that everybody hears is how grateful Chris Schold, the other owner of ISN, and myself are of some of the leaders in the industry. Dominic Maritek from
right.
Home Inspector Pro, or Carl from 3D. I mean, there's just these report writers they have been spending all these years making these report writers that are amazing. While
Right.
that was happening, my team, we have 4 full-time programmers that work where they're not outsourced, they don't work other places, they're in-house. All they're doing is making ISN better every day. So what you're looking at with ISN right now is literally over a $2 million investment and over 2 million lines of code, and thousands and thousands of inspection companies out there that are banging on this from all different directions. One-man companies, almost every national franchise uses ISN. I would say of the lion's share of all the multi-inspector firms use us. So what makes us different is you have report writing companies out there that have a few, and they're starting to market it more and more, a few business features. They'll say they have a scheduler and they may have a couple of emails that go out, or they may, they have little bits and pieces because they've started on it over the last year or two, where we have been working on just the best business scheduling management process in the industry for over 10 years. So even though we'll have competitors that'll be adding a few features and the ads might look a little the same, the products can't be the same because there's not enough inspectors nationally in North America for the report writing companies to now compete with the business side of what ISN offers. And so we're blessed to have these great report writers out there that are very about their clients as well. And so
Right.
they've connected with the ISN because they want to do what's best for their users. So if you take somebody like Home Inspector Pro or Carl at 3D, the leaders in the industry in the report writing side, they, even though they might have a few business features, they understand they want to go do what they do great, which is report writing, and allow ISN to continue to grow. And so rather than try to compete with that, you have all what I'll call some business starter kits out there, but
Right.
that's what they are compared to 10 years of us, learning and adding to ISN. And I think that's one of the big things. And the other thing that I couldn't be more proud of is if you talk around to our customers, our support. I realize I'm too close to the process, but I think our support is probably the best in the business. We have full-time phone and chat support 11 hours a day, Monday through Friday. We have how-to videos and everything. So if you're out there listening, you're driving down the street on the way to your next inspection, know that the reason that we have free setup, free 60 days, you can cancel anytime, you get the hour and a half or 2 hour free training. Why can we invest that in you? Because we know that you can do it, and that once you get automated, then you'll never look back. And so we really put our money where our mouth is and go, hey, it's free 60 days. We're going to give you personal training, personal support, because we know that, I can't, if you're listening and you don't know me out there, I can't earn your trust over this cast, but I know my team can do that over a 60-day period. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart.
Well, cool. That leads into my next question, Dan. But before that, I did want to say that comment on one thing that sets you apart. That I use 3D, and the cool thing with that is it does auto-populate. You guys play well together. I know most of you guys all go to the same conferences, and I'm sure you talk, and I think it does that with some other report writing. So it's nice. It's like what you said. You only have to type it once, and then everything will auto-populate for you because you guys all talk to each other and work that out. So that's nice. But that does lead into my next question. If, let's say somebody is thinking about signing up with you, but they're obviously scared, as I was. Change is hard. And I had to change a whole bunch of guys. What do you offer as far as training, and do you have videos and that sort of thing? What do you do to ease that transition?
Well, we do a couple things. So first, if everybody goes to inspectionsupport.net, And if you just go to the bottom of the page, you'll see a thing that says Welcome to ISN Featured Videos. And, of course, we would send you that if you were going to try the 60-day free trial. But if you clicked on there, right on our sales site is our new user how-to videos. So let's just say that you have a little pain in how you deliver, store, and track your contract signing and delivery. You could just go to our video on agreements and associations. So, well, how does this work in ISN, and maybe appease some of your fears before you even try the 60-day trial. So we have videos right there, and then the other thing that we have is we have a great help desk, which is if you have a question, you just send it into help.inspectionsupport.net, and we'll send you the information on it. It might be a video or a post. And then the best part is, because most of our inspectors are very visual.
Right.
And and so after you get your free trial for your ISN, then you can watch some of the videos, and then when you're ready, you just call up my team, and we literally do a one-on-one go-to-meeting where you are seeing our trainer's computer on your specific ISN, and they literally will help you make sure that it's all working with your inspection types, with your fees, how you want your order form, what you want the emails to say, when you want them to go out. So it's all about the support after you get started.
Absolutely. I think it's been a while since we set up, it's been several years now, but I think we had a classroom. I had all my guys come together, and I think you guys were online at the time, if I remember correctly, but, my old age, I can't quite remember. But we got everybody switched over.
Well, and one of the things that happens, Preston, we did with your group, because you had a lot of inspectors, is literally if you're a one-person inspection company, or maybe two, and you're taking your own orders or something, you might actually, a lot of times with one training of an hour and a half to two hours with a personal trainer from ISN, you're good to go. But if you have like multiple schedulers, and maybe you have 6 or more inspectors, or even 4 or 5 inspectors, oftentimes we do 2 or sometimes even 3 personal trainings with the companies, because one might be just for the schedulers.
Right.
One might be for the inspectors, and then one is an overview at the end. So again, going back to, it's about having the assets. If you like to learn with videos, we have them. If you like, the human one-on-one with the go-to-meeting, we do that. Our job, it's a wonderful and honest business model, is the more we can help make you successful and the more inspections we can help you do, the better our company does. I think it's a very fair and integrity-oriented way to make a living. Sure.
It's a win-win. And one thing I wanted to clarify, Dan, is you said there's a 60-day trial for someone who's, on the fence or whatever. So there's not an obligation, is there? I mean, if they decide it's not for them, they can opt out. There's no obligation.
Yeah, they can cancel any time, and we don't. So if they go 60 days, and if they had a training or 2, even, it doesn't matter. If they're not happy, it doesn't work for them. They just send an email in and cancel, and they won't have spent a dime. So we put where I come from, coming from the streets, it's just putting your money where your mouth is. We know that the product works, and so we know when people get in and spend a little bit of time to get it set up, that we can earn their business. And so if somebody's trying to sell me something and they want money up front, I tend to be a little more leery, where what I tell people is, if you're in the inspection business, you're very thorough. You're a good inspector. We look at so many things going through a house. Come be a good inspector on our product, and you'll find that you put us through the paces. And if you don't like it, you just cancel.
Cool. I like that. That's very good. All right. Changing gears just a little bit here, Dan. Do you have a success quote you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, one I've had for years is be a teacher and a student every day. And so I love the quote, be a teacher and student every day, because there's that old thing where you can't. It's tough to learn something if your mouth is open. and so my mom always taught me, one mouth, two ears. And so hopefully in my life I've tried to teach and help when I could, and then have the humility and the good sense to know that there's always people around you that are very knowledgeable. And so to have an opportunity to be a student is actually one of the things I enjoy about going to the conferences. We've got the national conferences, the state and local conferences we go to. I go there and obviously talk about ISN and all that, but I'm always amazed at somebody, sometimes even brand new to the business, might be a multi-inspector firm owner, might be one of their inspectors, or maybe a scheduler, and they just say the most brilliant of things. So I try, and I don't always do the best at it, but I try to be aware to be a teacher when I can, when I'm asked to be, and then shut up when it's time to be the student.
I hear you. And I used to be a teacher. I taught elementary school, believe it or not, and I firmly believe that in these interviews, I'm actually interviewing some guys who just started out in the business, and they're very humble, and they're like, "Well, I don't have anything to offer," And I said, "You'd be surprised. Sometimes, like you said, they're fresh. I mean, they are capable of coming up with something brilliant." Well, tell me, what do you do in your spare time, Dan? I know you play saxophone. Anything else? Between those two, that probably takes up a lot of time.
I like to travel, and then living in Las Vegas, I'm a pretty serious Hold'em poker player, so I've had the opportunity to play in the World Series of Poker a couple times, and
oh wow,
and so I definitely enjoyed it. I don't get to play as much as I'd like because I am so busy, but once in a while I'll sneak down to the Strip and settle in for a 12-hour game of poker or whatever,
wow.
and so that's my spare time. But my favorite thing is to travel with my bride.
Cool. 35 years, fresh.
Yeah.
Was it 35?
35 years, yeah.
That thing might work out after all.
There you go.
Dan, tell us something that I know a lot of people know you, but what's something they don't know about you?
What comes to mind, I guess, would be that we have a 5-year-old golden doodle dog, which is by far the best dog I've ever had in my life, and she is a licensed working therapy dog. So
cool.
we take her to the hospitals and to the assisted living. She likes the trainers told us that the dog would sort of let you know what kind of therapy work they like, and although she likes it all, she definitely loves the kids. And so a lot of holidays when I'm home, we will go, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or, the days when it's very hard to have the kids at the hospitals, we take Abby down and do some therapy work. So that might be something that people may not know about me.
Cool. Coming back to this, Dan, I want to know, tell me why I should buy your product. And I know but for the listeners out there, is it going to save them time or money, and is it going to give them an advantage over their competition?
Well, you got 2 out of 3 there. It will absolutely save them time because they're not retyping the same information over and over. It keeps them. It streamlines everything. So from the reporting side on the back end, knowing what your top agents and top offices are, to handling maybe your splits if you have another inspector. So it definitely saves them time. And time
right.
is money, so how you save money is by doing more inspections, getting more referrals because you have consistency. So
right.
2 out of the 3 we do for you. Now the third one is an interesting thing because you talk about a point of difference. I would say if we had this interview 5 years ago, I would say that a huge point of difference would be a product like ISN, where you have the automated emails and the contract delivery and a nice report delivery page and all those kinds of things. And 5 years ago, I would have said that is a big point of difference. Today, I will tell you that it's not so much a point of difference, is that you are losing ground if you're not offering those services to your client agents, because the expectation of the clients and the referring realtor community, their expectation is those things. So, yes, we save you time. Yes, we save you money. But we allow you to go out and be the great business owner, the marketer, the inspector, and let the process be seen by the clients and agents. And I will tell you, when I speak around the country, the number one thing that's changing is if you're listening to this and you're not sending confirmation emails, if you're not getting the agreement out before the inspection date, if you don't have a nice report delivery page, if you don't have those things, I can assure you that somebody in your market does, and as soon as those realtors you think are loyal experience that, they will either ask you to bring them those services or they will slowly and politely go away.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And there's so many things I did 5 years ago that I was like, you know, it was an advantage, but now everybody, it's the expectation. And like you said, now if you don't do it, you're going to fall behind.
Right.
Now, Dan, this next question, this might draw some of your home inspection experience and, you know, for all those years running those inspectors. And I know you're in constant contact with inspectors every day, so I think you could probably handle the question. You know as well as I do that if you do enough inspections, you're going to have some unhappy campers or, you know, a few. How did you handle, or how would you handle an unhappy? And it seems like people get more litigious over time, in my opinion. But how, you know, from speaking to inspectors, your experience, how would you handle an unhappy camper? Did you have a process, or would you have a process? What would that look like today?
Yeah, well, what we did at our inspection company for years, and I think what I would remind everybody is that you can't. The only person you can change is yourself. So with that, you can't change other people. So with that, how do we be a pillar in our community, be honorable, write a good inspection, and then when we're getting thrown under the bus by maybe you know, the HVAC guy or, you know, the roofer or whoever that we've all experienced, is if you, what I always had a policy was if there was a complaint about something we did, I would immediately get on the phone with the agent and the client and ask to meet them at the inspection. And as an owner, I would go with our inspector, because them being with them seeing that we were there right away, that we were engaged, that we cared, actually calmed everybody down by 80%. Now, if we missed something, we stepped up and we took accountability for it. Right. We would have them sign a full release, but then we would get it fixed, and we would get it fixed with our people, so we weren't paying 10 times the amount needed to fix it.
Right.
And so that's great. The other thing that some of my inspectors had a little trouble with sometime was if you take off your inspector hat, your prideful inspector hat, and you go to the other hand and you put on your business owner hat. Sometimes an unreasonable realtor or an unreasonable client that's asking you to fix something, saying you missed something that you shouldn't. First off, you didn't miss it. It was cosmetic or whatever. I mean, in other words, you as the inspector, you just didn't do anything wrong. But somebody, the client or the agent, is blaming you. Sometimes over $100 or $200 of repairs can be the best advertising and marketing dollars you could ever spend. So sometimes we would handle it that way. Now, if you have the roofer, the HVAC guy, or the plumber, or whoever that's making a big deal out of something that says, "Oh, your inspector should have caught that," I think going out to the property and letting them and explaining to them in a calm fashion and as least defensive as you can, and to take the personality and the emotion out of it, allows it to not be such a big deal. I know that Nathan Thornberry, I hear him speak a lot because we speak a lot around the country, and one of the things I've seen him do is have everybody raise their hand, go, who thinks that we're a very litigious industry, inspections, and pretty much everybody raises their hand. and then he'll go, okay, now who has been actually sued? And there'll only be one or two people in the business. So I think because we're candidly, I think we get a little bit of the male ego going sometimes. We're proud of what we do. I think that sometimes we take it a little too personally. I think if we manage it in a calm way and we let people know we care, we have great communication, timely communication, and I think going out to the property has probably saved me 2 or 3 lawsuits through the years because they saw we were there and we were engaged. And those realtors then tell everybody back at the real estate office how we stood behind our product. So we probably have made all of our complaint calls make us more money than if they never happened.
No, that's an excellent way to think of it. And I've heard sometimes, you can turn a bad situation into an opportunity. If you step up to the plate and do the right thing, you may have their future business for years, which is pretty valuable.
Right. Well, never mind what I call the water cooler effect, them standing around at the Thursday morning meeting or they stand up and say, I want to tell you what Preston and what Preston did at Home Inspection Carolina did, and that means more than, hey, they did a good inspection for me, but hey, they stood behind their product. And you know what? Sometimes the realtor's caught in the middle, and they don't want to lose their referrals, and they know if you got pushed on a little unnecessarily hard, and if you stand up and show them that you were, you didn't get riled, you were a calm business person, and there are times when you have to say no. I'm not suggesting we become doormats. So right. I know there's some purists out there that would complain that I'm suggesting we be doormats, and I don't want anybody to be hearing that. But I do think that most complaint calls can be turned into a marketing opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good point right here to pause for our sponsors, Dan.
Hey, home inspectors out there, I'm going to tell you a creative, inexpensive way to increase your business massively. Go to homeinspectionflyers.com and get the flyers. You get 5 flyers a month. You customize them to yourself. They're turnkey, they're creative, and it's $29 a month for 5 flyers. That's less than $6 a flyer. And they are done by yours truly, Preston Sandlin, and I am a creative guy, especially when I don't take my medication. But I come up with some crazy stuff. It works for my business. I went from 1 inspector to 7 inspectors with this strategy alone. So again, for $29.95, you get 5 flyers. I do 1 per week. I send them off to get copied on the internet. I can get them for about 7 cents a piece, and I put them out in the boxes when I do my candy run. Works fantastic. homeinspectionflyers.com. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'm back here with Dan, and we're getting on. This has been a great conversation. I hope I'm not holding you up. I mean, it's been fantastic. We could probably talk all day. And I think there's some golden nuggets that Dan is putting out there for people. So, Dan, switching gears here a little bit, tell us about a time when you failed. Take us there and what you learned from it.
Well, I can tell you that when our inspection company in Las Vegas was doing so good, we had 10 inspectors. We were by far bigger than anybody else in Las Vegas at the time. And very proud of what we were doing. We started on ISN. It was working. We really thought we had something. And when we first started going to the national shows, the NAHI and the ASHI shows back in the day, and some of the early InterNACHI shows, we got pummeled. We got killed because inspectors would come up and go, I don't see the value. There's no way I'm paying you, $3 or $4 an inspection. And by the way, what's a wind mitigation or a 4-point from the Florida guys or the East Coast guys priced by bedrooms and baths? And so our lack of national knowledge for probably the first 3 years of the national shows with ISN, we came home pretty meek and mild with a big list of getting more and more educated and adding features that worked on a national scale, and that's like any business. If you just got your inspection licenses, your inspection license, you might go out to some real estate offices and you might get thrown out of the office. You're not the preferred vendor. I use Bill. He's the best. I think every business as they get going gets their feet stepped on pretty hard, but I think it's all about being willing to learn, get your skills better, and going back and doing it again. So we definitely had our fortitude tested with ISN in the early years.
Sure. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, Dan, do you have? And I know we're all like, we always believe in constant improvement, but I'm sure, because you've had some great success, you've done very well. Is there ever a moment where you had a I made it moment or we've come a long way moment type sort of thing?
No, I don't think that it's a healthy place because there, as you mentioned, there was another management product that had a very good foothold in our inspection industry. And
right.
we watched them, and the owner and them very respectfully. I want to make sure everybody hears, not meant any disrespect, but that company has pretty much, it's still there out there today, but pretty much gone away. And so I don't think that there's a time to celebrate. There's always another company that is working. Working on Sundays and Saturday nights and trying to come up with a better product at a cheaper price point. And I think that that's one of the things, hopefully, that my team remembers. We certainly talk about it on a weekly basis. Is a little saying I came up with is be humble and helpful. And if we stay humble and helpful, then I think we'll be okay. But big celebrations, I don't think I don't think that there's time for that until maybe you and I play a round of golf at Pebble Beach when we're retired.
I hear you. I look forward to it. Well, Dan, do you have a favorite book you could recommend to our listeners? And what is it about the book that appealed to you?
I do. And, my favorite book is, it's an older book now, and there's been a couple of revisions, but I really like the original Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah. Love that book. Love it.
And, one of the things for if you're listening out there, I'm trying to read more as I've gotten a little older, but there was probably a 20-year period where I was like, I don't like reading, it's too slow, and I think that was one of the misses for me for a while. And the basic overview of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that, a young man being raised with sort of like two fathers, and one from the entrepreneurial world and one from the sort of government corporate world.
Education.
And the education and the different viewpoints. And I think that, if we talk to a lot of inspectors out there, we have this entrepreneurial pride that we can be as successful and as anybody with their master's degree or PhD. And I'm not knocking education; it's a wonderful thing, but I don't think it gives you a free pass to be successful.
That's right.
I think it's about your belief systems, and I think my personal view is you get paid in direct proportion to the amount of people you help.
Right, or the value you bring. I've got a great, I don't want to steal any, this is your interview, but you mentioned that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and there's a story he tells in there that applies to your business, I think. He tells this story about these two guys who get the contract or whatever to provide water for their township. And the first guy, he goes out and he starts hauling buckets and just bringing buckets from the lake into the thing. The other guy disappears for a while. They don't see him. So this guy has a monopoly for a while. And he's hauling buckets and he's getting paid whatever. Well, the other guy goes out and he gets incorporated. He gets some plans drawn. And he starts building a pipeline. And so eventually his pipeline starts providing water, more water, less expense, more efficiently. So the guy who was hauling buckets, who used to have sort of a monopoly, now he gets his whole family involved, and they're all working hard as they can, but they just can't, compete with that system. So the moral from this is, you always got to ask yourself, am I hauling buckets or am I building a pipeline? And I think your system is a pipeline. I mean, I'm not paid to say that, but it definitely is a pipeline. So anyway.
Well, we appreciate that, and I will say that that analogy is very true of what you've seen happen with our company and others in the industry. I think we try to provide a good foundational piece, and that foundational piece, just by the nature of home inspections is very complex. So to have a scheduling and management system that works for people across the country, we have people in Hawaii, we have people in Canada, we have people in New Zealand and Australia and New York and Florida, and that takes a lot of flexibility, and that takes building a proper pipeline instead of going and getting a few more buckets. And so
right.
if you're looking for a good book, everyone, try Rich Dad Poor Dad, and let Preston and I know what you think.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, tell us about, and it's probably hard to say because you can't read the future, but do you have any ideas about how your products will change or the future? You just, play George Jetson here for a minute. What would do you see anything coming down the pike or anything like that?
Well, I would say off the top of my head, it doesn't sound too George Jetson-y anymore, but it's just that we're becoming more mobile-centric. So if we look at not too long ago, everybody stored information on their computers. Now pretty much everything is, in the cloud so that you can access it wherever you are from any computer. And we want to be able to access the same information from our phone as we do our desktop or our tablet. And so I think that as much change as you've seen in the last 3 years in our industry and our lives in general, it wasn't too long ago we all had flip phones, right?
Right, the Razor.
Right. And so we all thought that was great. And so I think where I see the industry going more is more and more connectivity, and that the companies that are going to last need to be connected with other people in the industry. So, an example would be you mentioned for Home Inspection Carolina, you have a call center. So with ISN, not only we are connected to report writers and recall check and all those different kinds of great products within the industry, but also the call centers. And so I think that if you're not connected in and you're sort of not streamlined and automated with every need that the consumer needs, I think you'll fall by the wayside. I mean, truly, it's already happening where you're seeing people have all this information on their watch now, their
sure.
email and stuff. Stuff that you talk about George Jetson that we used to make fun about.
Yeah, you don't want to become the Woolworths of home inspection. You want to keep
right.
up.
Right.
Well, Dan, one thing that bothers me is in our industry, and I'm hoping you can maybe have some ideas on this, is contractors who come in and use fear to sell the mold, some of the mold. Now, there are some great mold people out there, and I'm not saying there's not toxic mold, but some of these guys come in and they use fear to sell, and sometimes they'll come in behind the inspectors, say, oh, your inspector should have caught that. You alluded to the HVAC guys. And I'm not saying that, sometimes it isn't legit, but a lot of times it's not. I mean, I've seen some of these guys, they are not mold remedial. They're mold salesmen, and they pretty much are going to sell a mold job no matter what. And it bothers me that we don't have a strong lobby as home inspectors, and I worry that more and more liability is putting on us. I mean, I've personally gotten a lot of those mold calls, and I'm friends with Butch and Arvel, big guys in our neck of the woods, and they're getting the same thing. Do you have any ideas on that? I don't know what I'm looking for here, but
I think it's a two-pronged answer, and we've already talked about one answer, and I know that you're good at. And that is, if there's an issue, that you immediately address it and go out to the job. And I think if you have good documentation, that an old teacher told me, be the source of the source, not the source.
Right, right.
So if you're the source of the source, and what I mean by that is that if you get good documentation about mold in your area, what is appropriate and safe amounts, and what is, well, there's going to be some mold in the house, and the test would show that a little bit, but it's okay. And we definitely have to keep our liability hat on some, and I get that. But I think if you go out to the property and you have good information for them, and you're calm, that you can help distance ourselves as an individual, as a company owner, and as an industry from the alarmists that will always be there. There's always predators in every business, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the second side of that is this. If you take a look, being a realtor for so many years, and then watching my wife, she's very involved with the Appraisal Institute nationally. She's got to go back to D.C. and speak at Capitol Hill. I mean, she's very involved. She's introduced some bills, and one of the things that's happened is the let's just take the realtor community or the appraisal community is they have been in existence longer, so they have larger bodies of people. They have larger bodies of dollars to be putting into lobbying. I would say that that's one of the strengths that I love InterNACHI, I love NAHI, I love ASHI, I love the state organizations. They all have their place. I know a lot of times there's bickering back and forth, but I think they all have their place. But I will tell you on a positive note, I think ASHI doesn't get enough credit for the amount of time, effort, and dollars they put into lobbying on the national level to have the inspectors have a voice.
Right,
and I think that because I know you're a solution-oriented guy, and I know that a lot of our listeners are, is we as home inspectors, as business people, as solution-oriented guys, we need to be involved with the solution at the association level, whether that's the Board of Realtors or your inspector association or whatever organization is locally. That old saying, act locally, think globally. So as bourgeois as that may sound, the solution is that we all work on it in each state, and then allow our associations to work more on a national level, and then defend with care and documentation on an individual for our individual inspections. So we have to defend the front line individually, and then think about what the overview solution is that might take another 10 to 20 years to come to fruition. Because one of the strongest lobbying associations in the country is NAR, the National Association of Realtors.
Right.
We're not big enough in the inspection industry to handle that, but where it starts is in Las Vegas, in Charlotte, in whatever town you're in.
Right. No, good stuff. Great, Dan. Good stuff. I want to ask your opinion on some, Dan. There are some great folks out there on the forums, and some of these forums are great, and there are people who are willing to help. And I really believe what Nathan Thornberry said in one of his books. No inspector gets out of bed and goes, I want to go do a bad home inspection today. I think everybody tries to do their best, and obviously there's different skill levels. But I'm bothered by what I see sometimes on these forums. There's some folks that, the negativity, the ego, we talked about that earlier, and the chest beating, and you can see it sometimes on these forums, and it's like, you're an idiot, I'm the best inspector in the world, da-da-da-da-da, and it's just, and honestly, it's a lot of guys don't even want to go on there, and a lot of the more people who should be on there are turned away by that. Do you have any opinions on that? I mean, how can we make our profession look more positive and professional?
Well, you mentioned Nathan and his new forum, and I think that whatever you might think about some of Nathan's come-froms or tactics, he's a gregarious guy. I will tell you that his products are some of the best in the industry, and he is a game changer in the industry. And hopefully the forum that he's doing there, I think I've talked to him personally about him making sure that if it becomes too negative that he will ban people. And
right.
I think that that's really ultimately what it takes. So whatever forum you have out there, I think it's up to the administrators of each forum to put their foot down and go, you may be part of our organization, you may be a user of our products, but if you aren't responsible to a certain level, you will be asked off of the to be able to post. And that's, I will say that on the other side of that, that's easy to say. It's a little hard to administrate.
Right.
But I think that there's certain levels of communication that isn't okay. So vulgar communication, attacking somebody personally, attacking somebody's family. There's things that I've seen on some of the forums that cause me not to get on some of them, and to where literally people are asking about Inspection Support Network and we don't respond because we don't see it because it's got so negative. And I think that hopefully that is starting to change with Nathan's forums. I hope that the forums continue to be more positive as we go. I do know that the administrators, all I know, from like one of the ones that has a lot of negativity, candidly, is InterNACHI, and Nick Gromyko is a friend of mine. I think he's been an amazing positive force in our industry. InterNACHI has some of the best online products, communication.
Right.
I mean, there's just a plethora of knowledge there, and I would hope that maybe that could be cleaned up. But again, that's just one guy's opinion. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but I think that arguing with people that like the sound of their own voice and the negative echo, you just have to let them go and just not communicate with them, because if they don't have anybody to argue with except the other 20 or 30 guys that apparently don't do a lot of inspections and must not have any personal lives, I think you just leave them to their own devices. The unfortunate side of that is that we have great people that have good knowledge that don't participate in some of the forums. And I think that in your question earlier, Preston, was where do we see the industry going? I think the industry is becoming more mature, more professional, and I think that you'll see that start to shore up and get a little better over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent. There's a saying, I'm sure you've heard it. What's that saying? Don't wrestle with a pig in mud. You'll only get dirty and the pig likes it, or something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and on a little side note, I know I sent you, I had these three guys, I didn't even realize it until a year later. I had a Facebook thing, and they were just destroying me, saying I was on the realtor's leash. And I actually emailed all three of them, and I was positive. I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you. And two of them didn't respond, but one of them said he's not in the business anymore. So I was like, there you go. point proven, but hey, let's stay positive. It's not any good to be anything else. All right, so Dan, what is the craziest, wildest, weirdest thing you have ever found or heard of being found on a home inspection? And keep in mind, I told iTunes this is a G-rated show, so. Not
a problem. Well, I don't think I have anything too crazy with the amount of inspections that I've managed or heard. I mean, we all hear about the snakes or the all kind. We've had people living in attics, and we found loaded shotguns, and
wow.
In the house. We've had people that when the realtor sold the house, it was vacant, and when our inspector showed up, there was somebody living there with furniture. We've seen, and of course, one of my favorites is one of my inspectors. It was one of my inspectors, and he forgot to reset the GFCI in the garage, and we had a hunter that had about, I don't know, he said about $1,500 worth of meat in his freezer that all went bad.
Of course.
So, and I don't think I have anything overly dramatic, because I'm sure many of our listeners have, much crazier stuff. And but all in all, I would say I think that's some of the stuff that keeps our inspection industry crisp. fun, entertaining, and if I had a job that I knew how every day was going to go, I'd have to slit my wrist. So I think having some sort of awe about what could happen today is a good thing.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you, my inspectors are out in the field. They'll text me pictures of something that they found on the inspection, and all I can say is if somebody ever searched my phone, some of those pictures, let's keep it.
Oh yeah, you definitely get into people's personal space.
Personal space, exactly.
And I think that's a good reminder for us on the amount of trust that we're giving as professional property inspectors. That not only are we inspecting what'll be one of or probably the number one investment of maybe that family's life, but you're also going in as sort of the working for the other team, if you will, into
Sure.
the seller's, personal space, and to honor that personal space, and that whether that home is messy or unkept or, not as nice as we think it should be, it's their kingdom. And so, the crazy stuff that we see, I think, is a good opportunity to keep things in perspective about the trust we've been bestowed
Sure.
to be in their home.
No, that's excellent. You're absolutely correct. Well, Dan, do you have an internet, or do you have a training or an internet resource or marketing resource that you'd recommend you'd be willing to share with everyone?
Well, I would say that the marketing resource that I would tell people is a couple of things. I would say that there's statistics that show only about 1% of us are willing to be coached,
right?
And to have some kind of professional coach, and there's two people I'll mention that have two very, very different styles, and that's Ken Compton.
Right.
Ken and Beth are great folks and have their marketing and coaching program, and then of course Mike Crow and the Millionaire Inspector Community, and I would just say that if you're serious about growing your company, streamlining, those are two great places. And I would also say that one of the great things about being in mastermind groups or coaching groups is that you get around people that want to talk about the positive and not the negative, and they also will challenge you to rise above. So and what I mean by rise above is I mentioned sometimes in my trainings that humans really get very attached and in love with their victim story.
Right.
And so and that victim story may work okay for your relatives or for your friends over a cup of coffee or a beer or some dinner, but it doesn't empower you. And to be around like the people at Ken or Mike's coaching communities, I think is very powerful, because you can find a way to get from one inspector to two if you want. If you want to stay one inspector, that's fine, but how do you streamline, maximize, and have something to sell when you're done instead of just close it down? The other thing I would say as far as having a resource is, I got to say, man, InterNACHI, if you look at the resources that they have on InterNACHI, it is amazing. And I also know that, Nathan from Inspector Services Group is working with Mike Casey and getting Inspector University going. And so, again, we're maturing, and there are positive places for you to be nurtured and challenged at the same time. The resources are out there. And, I would start with, online with, Inspector University, Inspector Services Group, InterNACHI, and then if you're really about putting in the afterburners, I would check out Ken Compton or Mike Crow. Again, they have very different personalities and sort of different tacks, but I can tell you that both groups of people that are involved with them, I see them do nothing but grow their business.
Right. Right. Good stuff. Well, Dan, tell me, what is the best part about your job? We're winding down here. What is the best part of your job and why? And what is the worst part of your job and why?
The best part about my job is having the privilege of seeing people grow. So, I can think of a guy, I won't even mention his name, but he's in the Carolinas down by you. He had, it was just him. His wife was still is a realtor, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't need all this ISN stuff. I'm too busy." Well, I can tell you that gentleman has 3 full-time inspectors now, and somebody that's managing for him, and he's doing great. And seeing people be able to provide for their families at a higher level, have a little more time, being able to take a Saturday off and go spend some time with the family. That's absolutely the best thing that I get to do every week.
I think I know who you're talking about. I think I've got him lined up to interview too. He's going to do an interview with me. Well, what's the worst part about your job, or do you have a worst part?
I think I guess the worst or the most frustrating part is when if people are having challenges with their business or the ISN, that they don't reach out and ask for help. I think one of the interesting things is, and again, not trying to be sexist, but us guys, we're a little tough sometimes, and we have that male ego and won't ask for help too much, and so we go to great lengths to be able to help anybody that wants it. I tell people all the time, we'll invest as much time in your future as you're willing to.
Right.
Because a lot of times we hear inspectors say, gosh, I want to get on ISN, or I want to learn how to use some more of the features ISN, but I'm just so doggone busy. And I always tell them, well, we're here when you're ready. And I think that's the frustration when you see people with lots of potential that just won't hunker down, ask for help, and be willing to learn something new. You have to be able to be willing to be to have what I call fresh eyes. You got to be willing to go, you know what, this computer's confounding me, and I'm frustrated about it, but will you help me? And then slow down and learn it. So I think that's the most frustrating is people that I see so much potential, and they're maybe they're coasting more than is good for their life.
Yeah, well, you're watching them hauling buckets when you know they could build a pipeline.
Perfect, exactly.
And the other thing that we've mentioned all through here, all the stuff that it does, but the one thing I forgot to say is it gives you your life back. I mean, there's such a strong thing because it does so many things for you that you used to, spend hours, or your wife gave me my wife back, actually, life and wife, because my wife did a lot of that. Now, Dan, is there anything you're working on right now that has you jacked up or excited about?
Well, I mean, from a business side, a personal side, I will tell you that we're very honored that the independent inspectors see ISN as a good solution, and we don't take that for granted. We mentioned staying humble and helpful, but I am proud to tell you that 9 out of 10 of the top national franchises use ISN, and so I think that hopefully speaks volumes about the integrity, how we don't share data, we keep our mouth shut about proprietary processes and stuff. So I'm very proud that the franchise organizations have entrusted us in working with them as well. And right now we got a Buyer's Choice who is quite a big organization, and they're in several countries, and we're rolling out them with ISN, and they're going to be all of them are going to be using Home Inspector Pro as well. And
cool, Dominic.
And Dominic's product, and we are we just opened up Australia and New Zealand for them. So that's exciting. The one other thing that might be good for some of our ISN users or potential ISN users out there is we're seeing more and more services being added to the standard inspection. One of them is Radon. with radon, however, the canisters or whatever you have that need to be placed, and where are my monitors, and who dropped them off, and who needs to pick them up, and
Right.
it's a big mess. And so we will have a specialized radon app that will be coming out in 2015
cool.
from ISN. So
sweet, because I have that big mess you were talking about.
yeah, well, and we see it a lot around the country, and so we've been working on it for months. If you're listening, please don't call me and ask me when it will be done next week. But I will tell you that it is well into the project, and will be that'll be one of the things that will be rolling out to the industry here in 2015.
Sweet. And Dan, I'm sorry I've kept you so long, but you have been dropping such great value bombs here that it's fantastic. I just have 3 questions, and I won't hold you up any longer. You've obviously been around the home inspection business a long time and seen it from all sides. You're uniquely qualified to see it from a realtor's perspective and a vendor, the whole 9 yards. I wonder if you could answer this question as a home inspector, though, Dan. If you were a home inspector and you had to go to a brand new town that you didn't have any networks there, but you had all of your current knowledge, room and board taken care of, all your equipment, and you had $5,000, what would you do in that first week? In just broad strokes, not
I would go sign up and find out if there were what school or test I could take to get my inspector license.
Right.
And then I would find then I would pick an area of town and pick out 20 real estate offices, and I would be going into each one of those offices at least twice a week during their meeting days and start to develop my relationships. And if I thought that my 5,000 wouldn't last long enough to develop that right off, I literally may go find a company with multi-inspectors and just tell them I'd like to market them. So if I didn't want to maybe do my own inspection company, I think that we're starting to see more and more people that are just good relationship guys and good marketers.
Right.
That literally could be of tremendous value to home inspectors, and so I definitely would in most cases I think I just get my license and start marketing, because you know what, the real estate agents are needing. They just want to know who to call. I mean, if you need a plumber tonight, isn't it nice to know that you have the plumber that you can call and will treat you right?
Right.
And that relationship started somewhere before tonight when your sink was leaking, and so it's all about getting out there and being involved. So you go to the offices, you go to the board of realtors, and you just go out and what a buddy of mine in Texas says. There's too many people that have a mouthful of howdy and a handful of gimme.
That's great. That's great.
And isn't that so Texas? And that's really true, is because if it's true that givers gain, we just got to go out and try to help people, and then guess what? As a byproduct, we get something back. And so to me, it's all about marketing. Get that $5,000. I'm going to get my license and go shake some hands.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. Well, down to the last 2 is so Dan, is there anything that I should have asked you but didn't?
I can't think of anything. You were pretty thorough. I hope we didn't keep our listeners on too long, but we covered lots of territory, and I would say whether they ever use ISN or not, hopefully their time listening to you and I banter back and forth has caused them to get some nugget of value, and if we did that today, then our time wasn't wasted.
Oh no, it's excellent. I got a feeling I'll probably get some emails like, I've listened to that thing twice. Now, one last question: is there anything you want to ask me?
Yeah, what's the best way for an inspector that doesn't like to market himself and doesn't have enough of a budget to hire somebody full-time, how do they get somebody to market maybe part-time for them? How do they find them, and how do they pay them?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I do the marketing for our company, but it's not scalable is my problem. So I'm going to have to do that, exactly what you're saying. I think if you get somebody, you got to look for a bubbly personality. A great fit, if you could find them, is one of those people who did title or warranties, because they've already done this and they already have those connections. I think a bubbly personality and a person with integrity, and you got to be able to keep track of where they go. I think Nathan has the BAM dashboard or something that can sort of keep track of that. It's two parts. You want to go out and you want to hit the offices, but you also want to try to get speaking engagements or try to, speak at their meetings. So somebody with integrity and somebody who, has a bubbly personality. As far as paying them, I hate paying somebody an hourly rate, but you might have to do that. Maybe an hourly rate plus bonuses if they could get speaking things. Does that sort of what you would say too, or you have anything to add?
I think that that's spot on, and one of the things that I mention to folks when I'm talking to them, or maybe in some of the classes at the conferences, is I think that we have to be like, you're a great marketer and you like doing it. You got your signature like wild pants, and you have your vibe or your thing. And we have inspectors out there that they just know that they just can't get over that hump of walking into an office and facing maybe some possible rejection. And
right.
So if you know that you're not going to do it, and you're not prepared to jump in hard enough to hire somebody full time, here's what I would recommend.
Okay.
Find yourself somebody that, and again, I'm just going to be just very direct about this, because I think that there is a niche in the marketplace that can benefit all, and
okay.
that is find somebody that is bubbly, upbeat, very positive, that maybe is a full-time mom, and their main focus and their main commitment is their kids, but they can give you 10, 15, 20 hours a week, and that means that you may need to work around their kids' schedules, because that's what's most important to them, as it should be, right? But
right.
Now you might get a quality person that you couldn't otherwise afford, and
right.
and then one of the things that's great is you literally could give them, say, 10 offices, and you could pull up on your ISN. You see how I snuck that in there? So you could pull up your report and go, how many inspections did we do in the month of January from Coldwell Banker Premier? And you could see, well, you did 20. So you could tell them, any agent that has never used us before out of that office, maybe they get, like what they call it in the furniture business, sales business, a spiff, a little bit of a bonus. And if we do anything more than 20 inspections during that month, they get a little. And so now all of a sudden your investment is full. So you work around the full-time mom experience, and you might find that you now have hired somebody that wants to get out and talk to some adults and use some of their skills for probably half of what they probably should be making in their chosen profession, except that their life choice is to be a full-time mom. I can tell you that at ISN that we have Nicole, that is just one of our rock star support people. She starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and she works to 2. And that's because she picks her kids up at school at 2:15. And if we didn't work around her schedule, we couldn't have such an awesome employee. So I was just curious how you would answer it, because I know how you're growing and you're going to need another marketing person. And I think that the full-time mom working around their schedule is an untapped gem.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. We've used some full-time moms for answering our phones, and I think that is a huge untapped resource, just like you said. And just to add to what you said, this is it. I know people are like, I got to go. But, if you're not good at something, I've learned that something I'm not good at, hire somebody to do that.
Right.
I have an accountant because I can't keep. I'm doing good to get all the receipts out of my dashboard here, and if you're not good at marketing, you're not bubbly. I get it. You're probably a really good technician. Hire somebody who is, and you're
Right.
exactly right. The mom, stay-at-home mom is a great resource. Well, Dan, you have been super gracious with your time. I'm sure it ran way over what you were expecting, but I think the value was worth the time, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate it. Is there some way that they can get in touch with you if they have a question for you or your team, or if they're interested in ISN?
Absolutely. If they want to just sort of look at the videos, check out ISN, or if they want to sign up for the free no obligation trial, they just go to inspectionsupport.net, and they'll see features and bios and our pricing and just the order for the free demo and all of that. And if they have any questions, literally they can email me personally at dan@inspectionsupport.net. We don't hide. We're here to help you. Of course, any question that you would have of my team in general just could be addressed to help@, so HELP @inspectionsupport.net. But everything will be there at inspectionsupport.net. Or email me personally. We're here to help, even if you're not an ISN client or don't even plan to be. We're just about helping folks because we believe that comes back to us. And Preston, thanks so much for having me today. I sure appreciate what you're doing.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate it.
Have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Successful Home Inspector podcast, where we share funny stories and we talk about how to increase your business, and we share some success stories and some not so success stories that we can learn from. We're also here to share resources. You can find out more about today's show in show notes at the successfulhomeinspector.com. Thanks for listening.